Hello again from Sprott Money at sprottmoney.com. We have reached the end of October, and what an October it has been. Straight up, straight down, back to unchanged. Wow, it has been a wild one. And so for your monthly wrap-up, I brought in who I think could really wrap it up for us. Again, I'm your host, Craig Hemke, and joining me is Lobo Tiggre, longtime precious metal natural resource analyst. And I thought, wow, what a great guy to have again as we wrap up October. Lobo, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Craig, and longtime viewer of Sprott Monthly Wrap-Up.
Hey, we've been doing this for a long time, brother. And you know, getting close to the end of the year, maybe we can get the old man to come on and do one of these as we wrap up too. It'd be good. My net worth went up a little bit this month, but I bet his has probably gone up a little bit too.
Just a bit.
Anyway, if you want your net worth to go up, keep stacking that metal. Sprott Money, of course, should always be on your list of sources to check whenever you're acquiring physical metal, gold, silver, a place to store it. Go to sprottmoney.com and check all the deals that they always have on their site. But of course, you can always just call them too if you want to talk to an actual person. 888-861-0775. Lobo, before we get going, I've known you for a while, but for people that don't know who you are and your background and where they can find your work, please fill them in.
Sure. Well, my running joke is that I'm the cheap knockoff Mexican Doug Casey. And that I work for the legendary speculator. You know, after Eric and Rick, we've got Doug. Those are like the three bright names in our space. And so, yeah, Doug's a great big guy, you know, and he was tired of hitting his head on these little old colonial mining tunnels in Mexico and Peru and whatnot. So he sent me in and kicked a lot of rocks, and I learned a lot about picking stocks, if you allow me the rhyme.
I like that. I like that.
And so now I'm the independent speculator. You know, Casey Research is no more. I went independent in 2018, and you know, I don't want to make it an advertorial, but just, you know, I have a network in this business that I built with my years with Doug and learning from him. And actually I interviewed Eric early on in my career. So a lot of these guys who came before have contributed to my success.
Yep.
And now, you know, I'm not ready to retire, but I am trying to pass on what I've learned.
Right. Independentspeculator.com, correct?
Thank you.
And also a great follow on Twitter. I don't follow very many people, but I got Lobo on the list. I think if you're on X, Twitter, be sure to check out Due Diligence Guy, right? Isn't that your address?
Yeah, though I have to give you credit. I know you're referring to the memes more than my brilliant market analysis. And I have a meme master. We have a resident writer who's just really funny, very creative. Some of the memes we come up with together, but most of the really funny ones, I have to say, are him. I'm generally known as a stick in the mud. You know, I'm the rain on the parade, but you know, that's what due diligence is for, right? But credit where to do, you know, his name is Kyle Johnson. He's absolutely brilliant, and I'm really happy to have him on my team.
But then it's like I said, it's a great follow. All right. So Lobo, we've had quite the month. Gold has kind of followed a pattern for the last year and a half. Once it broke out to new all-time highs in March of 24, it's followed a pattern of 15 to 20% rallies followed by multi-month consolidation periods. This most recent rally took off in late August, early September, and rallied 20% or so. Now seems to be in a consolidation period again. What do you make of gold here with a couple months left in 2025?
I think that's an excellent way to frame it. And I think that's really important because when something pulls a hockey stick, right? And part of my official rain on the parade hat is to point out, hey, this has just gone vertical. Nobody goes broke taking profits. You know, the more extreme the hockey stick, the more likely it is to roll over, right? And people say, oh, he's got no conviction. He's selling to. I mean, taking profits doesn't mean exiting the market. It just means locking in your gains. But anyway, the point is we just saw a hockey stick. And we saw a hockey stick on top of a hockey stick. And so, you know, to say this is it, it's going to the moon, it could be, but that's a big ask. And so what I'm saying, the reason why I'm stressing this is because there was a not just a non-zero or a non-trivial, but I think there was a significant chance that, you know, gold goes zooming up, it hits some kind of fulfillment number that Mr. Market has in his head, and he just decides to sell, and that trigger stops. There's a cascading event. So hitting almost 4,400 could have been the thing that sent it back down to 3,400, which would be a great actual level for making money in the business, by the way. But the stocks obviously would tank if that happened. So, given that the alternative to what you've just said, Craig, is this massive retreat, too far, too fast, it would be anything but surprising to see a much more substantial correction. So actually, this is maybe the most optimistic, bullish thing I can say this whole conversation is that the fact that gold is wobbling around 4,000, I think that's fantastic news because the alternative is, went up and then boom, like really boom,
Right.
way
Right.
back down. And that doesn't seem to be happening now, even though, there's been headwinds, the peace with Gaza or peace with China in the trade war, whatever, and gold's still holding in there. That is extremely bullish in my view. And it did it at 2,000. It did it at 3,000. If 4,000 is the new 3,000, that implies like 5 to 6K being the next leg up, next big leg up. That's not a prediction or a promise. I'm just saying, I'd much rather see consolidation before the next move higher, which is what it looks like right now, than, that boom.
Uh, so the headline for this, Lobo Tiggre says gold's going to
That's
6.
right.
That happens to me. People do that to me all.
Clickbait me, bro.
We're not going to do that to you, I promise. However, to your point, gold consolidated at 3,500 from April to August. And it seemed like there was an exodus of the mining shares in June and July. And then once the mining shares figured out, wait a second, we're deep into the third quarter here and price is still $3,500. All of a sudden they took off. Then gold took off again. We're in that kind of exodus of the mining shares again. What do you think? I mean,
Well,
we make it to November
the
at
stocks are
4,000?
supposed to give us leverage to the underlying metal. And
Right.
by the way, this is an important point. When I talk about taking profits, nobody goes broke taking profits, or I have my upside maximizer strategy, or whatever strategy you have. The worst thing in the world would be to be a long suffering gold or silver bull to finally be right and not make any money. This is Sprott money, not Sprott religion about silver and gold, right? If the idea is to actually make and keep the money you make, you have to be rational as you approach these markets. But I'm talking about the stocks. Bullion, basically, I never sell unless like there's some emergency and I need to dip into my rainy day fund. That's what insurance is for, right? Or maybe some once in a
Right.
lifetime opportunity. I have literally done both in my life with my bullion savings. And as you and I are speaking, there's a headline right now about this guy, some crypto guy who owns a third of a cube, like this 2-foot cube of solid gold, like Warren Buffett's cube, but an actual physical cube. It weighs 400 pounds. And this guy owns about a third of it, and he's in bankruptcy. So his stake in this cube of gold is up for sale. Maybe let Eric know. He might be interested.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Bail him out. His stake is worth $32 million at current levels. And I think that really illustrates exactly what I'm talking about. Like this guy's facing bankruptcy. His tokens, his NFTs aren't helping him out right now.
Yeah.
But he owns a third of this giant cube of gold. This pet rock that's totally useless is doing its job in this space. So please don't when people say, "Oh, he's selling gold." No, I'm not selling gold. It's my bullion stays there unless I absolutely need it for one way or the other.
Yeah.
But as a speculator, it's my job to make money in the stock market and to realize those gains, right? So I think it's extremely bullish what we're talking about. If we're consolidating and forming a new floor before the next move up, that's great. All the fundamentals, I think, support that, like the central bank buying. We've talked about this before. I don't need to wax rhapsodic about that, but that is the most important thing to me is that that's a one-way door. That doesn't change. Trump and Xi kissing and making up doesn't mean suddenly China's going to be happy to have its financial lifeblood flowing through New York, right? So
Right.
that actually limits the downside in my view. I don't think we can count on central banks to chase the price higher, but they do buy the dips. I think we have seen this over the last couple of years. And that's really interesting. So I don't want to give you too much clickbaity headline there, but believe it or not, I'm feeling much, much better about both monetary metals right now than a month ago when it was doing this. When it was
Right.
doing that, I mean, 10 years ago, we would have been ecstatic to be talking about $4,000 gold, $5,000 gold, right? That we would think that would be it. Like we would be arriving at the blow off top. And now that we can be at this level and think of it as just another shoulder before the eventual head, I think that's extremely positive.
Yeah, that central bank demand, for everybody watching, here on Thursday as we record this, World Gold Council was just out today, with their third quarter central bank demand report and everything else that goes with it. And I encourage everybody to check that out. And again, I was even thinking, Lobo, that is the part of it that what's leading to these stair steps higher is that central bank demand kind of puts almost like a little floor under price. Everybody recalibrates, readjusts to it, and then here we go again. As long as that central bank
Right.
demand.
It's really striking. You see, sorry to jump in, but you
No, go
see
ahead.
things that in recent years would have been, causing a major drawdown in gold and then echoed in silver. And somebody with really deep pockets steps in to buy those dips.
Yeah,
I don't think that's you and me going down to the coin shop, right, and buying another round.
right.
Uh, Whereas if you're a central bank and you've been told by your powers that be, your marching orders are, we don't trust the dollar, we need to diversify, you need to start accumulating gold. What are you going to do? You going to chase the highs? Of course not. I mean, my mentor, Doug Casey, has had unkind things to say about the intelligence of the average central banker. But their minions who are in charge of implementing the policy, of course, they're going to be buying on the dips. So I just see this as really important. And if you want to make a case that this time is different, famous last words, blah, blah, blah. But this actually is different. If you and I have enough silver in our hair to remember the central bank gold selling agreement. Remember,
Oh,
we're not going to
yeah,
sell more than
right.
500 tons a year, blah, blah, blah. Like, the concern before was the central bank selling. Oh, so yeah, that is kind of different if we're if we're in buying mode. But one thing I will say, dear gold bulls out there and silver, but the central banks aren't really accumulating silver. But I mean, which of us is not suspicious of the motives and the trustworthiness of central banks? So don't right. So
Yeah,
I don't want everybody to go out and hang their whole thesis on, oh yeah, Lobo says the central banks are the reason to buy gold. No, that's not what I'm saying. And they don't have a mandate to buy every week or every month or whatever. We've seen China disappear from the market for a while. See,
yep, yep,
these are not our best friends. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that flop from selling to buying and the part of the de-dollarization trend, all these macro global geopolitical and financial trends, there is a real change in the world and it is materially beneficial for gold, and that typically gets echoed in silver.
yep.
Even if very few central banks are buying silver, only a couple.
Well, so Lobo, in that vein of, is this time different? I mean, I look at the chart of silver and my spidey senses go off, right? Because I remember 2011 and I was 14 in 1980. And so you see there, oh boy. Um, However, with that said, I mean, we've seen silver go back just a few weeks ago, make some new nominal all time highs. We've seen copper here do the same recently. Um, is this time different? Is silver going to follow through, do you think, like gold had? Gold broke to new all time highs 18 months ago and has since doubled. Well, is silver
Yeah,
now
yeah.
do the
So
same and catch up?
let's drop the "is this time different" thing. We've made a case for some things don't change. The dangerous thing about saying this time is different is obviously the world changes, right? But what's dangerous is when people want to say that like something has changed in human nature or in the nature of markets, like trees can grow to the moon now where they couldn't
Right,
before. Like that's what's dangerous when people say this time is different. What that can get you in trouble when you're saying, oh well, the rules no longer apply.
right.
And that's not what we're saying. I'm still looking, even with gold and silver miners, I'm looking for profitable companies. Like, if you can't make money at $4,000 gold, sorry, you're a crappy gold company. There's no other more technical way to put that. And similarly, at silver. I mean, silver, the mines that are in operation now, they were designed at like $15 silver
Mm,
or less. It's not so
yeah,
long ago that, especially the long in the tooth mines. So they have to be either printing cash, and if gold and silver are real money, right? Like almost literally, like they have to be either printing cash or they're doing something very wrong. And on the making money side, like this is actually the market giving you a gift. If you're a speculator in the stocks, there's a temptation to say, oh, they've all run up. What's still on sale? What's cheap? Well, if something is really cheap or if the company is not delivering in this environment, I, that's not a bargain. That's not a deal. This is when we just climbed a hockey stick, that's not the time for bottom fishing. If the entire market is telling you there's something wrong with this company and you don't see it, I mean, have a little humility here and maybe consider that maybe there's something wrong with that company, even if you
Right.
don't know what it is. Um, Sorry, I'm getting distracted. With silver, I mean, it's relevant because if you've got a crappy silver company that's not doing well in this environment, that's not a buy. As far as silver itself, we did have the physical squeeze in London, well documented. I don't need to go in at length about that. That was obviously not going to last forever. I say obviously, some people argued, well, mine production would never catch up, but there is silver above ground that could be brought to bear, and it's
Mhm.
not just grandma's old tea set, right?
Right.
I understand that actually it wasn't so much flights reversing from Chicago and New York to London, but actually China that stepped in with
I'd seen
silver
that
to help
too.
London out. So I think it was if not entirely predictable, it seemed likely that that squeeze would not last. And here again, people say I hate silver, I'm a bear on silver. I'm not a bear. I'm trying to be a realistic hunting wolf looking for opportunities, really. But the interesting thing about this is like when that silver squeeze was happening, the physical squeeze, and silver goes screaming up to $54 an ounce. Long suffering silver bulls are celebrating, but I'm like thinking, wait a minute. When silver starts catching up to gold, even your most diehard silver bull will tell you silver lags at first and then catches up or more than at the end of the bull market. So if this is that catch up phase, that means it's the end of the bull market. And I don't think so. I'm a fundamentalist, not a technical, but even with gold over 4,000, I look at the world, the central bank buying, the money printing, the inflationary agenda in the United States and Europe, even China promising almost like Mario Draghi, I'll print all I have to get inflation going again, right? You know, all of this is extremely bullish for monetary metals, other metals too, just commodities, anything real actually in this world. So I'm remain bullish on silver. But that temporary surge on the basis of this London squeeze, I'm glad to see it resolved. I'm glad to see silver consolidate in the 40s, not 30s,
Right.
right? That's a profitable price for these companies and for the better projects out there. There's nothing wrong with $40 silver in terms of the business of mining this stuff right now. Don't take me wrong. I'm not saying I don't want it to go higher. I'm just saying, unless you're a crappy company, this is not a bad price level. So, so the takeaway though, Craig, is that if silver going vertical meant that we were approaching the final blow off top, yeah, we'd all make a lot more money in the next couple of weeks, but that would be it. And then we'd probably be looking at a multi-year bear before the next leg up. So the fact that it corrected, and got ahead of itself and now it's pulling back and the GSR widened again, silver bugs hate that. But I think this is very good news in terms of the health and outlook of the overall bull market for monetary metals going forward. Right? I don't want it to end now yet. I'm not ready
Right.
yet. Right?
Right.
Mr. Market doesn't care what I want. That's not important what I want. But my analysis of the market is that we shouldn't actually be topping out yet. And
Right.
so I'm glad to see the data backing me up on this.
Right. Right. And gold in that period when it was first trying to break out from early December of 23 to February of 24, it just kept banging up against the all-time highs. And then once it got going, it really got going, obviously. So
Oh,
it'll
yeah.
be interesting to see now if silver can't pull that same kind of pattern
And
over the
and
next,
by the way, for long suffering silver bulls here, note that the spike uh, 14 years ago and the
Mhm.
spike in 1980, those were intraday highs. I mean, the zip up and down on either side of those was extremely sharp. So
Right.
the fact that
Right.
silver stayed over 50 for more than a week, that's already different. Like that is different this time. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's actually quite encouraging. Oh, and
Yeah.
one other thing. Everybody says I hate silver, but it is a mathematical fact that gold has hit a real all-time high if you use CPI, and I know it's CPI, blah, 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 but just it's a conservative case, right? If we use their number, they can't criticize us for using it. So if you adjust gold for CPI, we have hit a real all-time high, even including the 1980 peak. That is far from the case from silver. So if I'm bullish on monetary metals, but I'm nervous about chasing gold over 4,000, silver is a much more compelling buy. It literally needs to still, even from 50, it needs to go 4 times higher to reach a real high. And that's even just using the CPI, never mind a real inflation adjuster. So, you know, I'm actually quite bullish on silver. And by the way, I know you mentioned it earlier, but I'm also bullish on copper. And silver, as we all know, has an industrial side as well as a monetary side. I see that actually as a win-win thing, not a bad thing. Some people hate it when I say that. Oh, silver's money. But if I'm bullish on gold and I'm bullish on copper, how can I not be bullish on silver?
Right, right. And to the editors of the video, new headline possibility: Lobo Tiggre says silver going to 200. Uh,
So it's like 206 and change the last time I ran the math on CPI.
all right. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is this idea of rare earths and uranium. Rick Rule got me started on uranium 3 or 4 years ago because it seemed like such a compelling investment thesis long term. You know, none of this doubling in 6 months stuff. And now it seems like the world is coming around to that, and rare earths too. The investment possibilities are limited, but there's quite a few. And so far, it seems like, at least in that initial run up over the last couple of weeks, that especially the rare earth critical mineral stuff is like the rising tide lifted all the boats. But that's not like a long term strategy. How, in your mind, how does someone assess solid investment opportunities in uranium miners and rare earths and
Solid.
critical? Yeah. How do you
Uh,
discern the good ones from the bad ones
yeah,
that
yeah.
won't forget?
Well, yeah, this doesn't work.
Good point. You can try. What the heck?
So, well, let's separate things. I think the uranium thesis is much more solid. It's also one metal
Right.
with, you know, certain off the shelf technology for processing and recovery. And that is not locked in China. And by the way, with the rare earths, like it's not just that they mine them there, it's the processing there
Yeah.
and the expertise they've developed there, which is harder to diversify. So uranium doesn't suffer from those setbacks. And the use case, I used to say every week there's some new bullish headline for uranium. It's almost daily now
Hmm.
with you know, I think today the big headline that caught my attention is the Democratic governor of New York, Hochul, has
Yes.
talked about a gigawatt of
Right.
nuclear specific. Like the green mantle coming onto nuclear shoulders is another one of these game changers. I
Yep.
mean, it's absolutely, I think it would take a Chernobyl scale event to derail this. And the demand keeps going, and we've seen that the supply, it was reasonable a year ago to ask, well, will high prices cure high prices? There's a lot of low hanging fruit out there, mothball production, kind of like OPEC, voluntary supply constraint amongst the big uranium producers. We now have an answer to that. And the answer is no. I mean, it's not that they didn't try, but the biggest and the best in the space have failed to meet their goals, and they've moved the goalposts actually. And amongst the juniors, it's been a train wreck. Most of them have either reduced guidance, pushed the dates forward, or just not been able to build a mine at all. So I won't go too long down that rabbit hole, but I think like literally this can melt down if there's a nuclear accident, but that's what it would take to derail the thesis. Nothing short of that, I think, really changes uranium for years to come. I mean, maybe decades down the road, thorium takes over or fusion or whatever, but that's not an investable thesis right now. So
Right. Right.
I really like the uranium story. The only problem I have there in terms of making money is that it's so obvious that the stocks have actually not sold off with the volatility and the spot price. And so finding opportunities has been a bit tough. I'm waiting for another big scare. And they happen. Like just earlier this year, there was that DeepSeek scare coming out of China.
Hmm.
And nuclear has been sort of an AI play as well as a green play. And the uranium stocks just got clobbered, like 52-week highs to 52-week lows on that news. And it was completely ridiculous. I mean, and many of the better ones have come on to new multi-year highs since then, just in the last few months this year. So I love it. I'm long already, so I'm not feeling any FOMO, but I'd really like to see another one, volatile opportunity like that to buy. The rare earths is much, much harder. We say rare earths, REEs, whatever, but it's not one thing. It's a whole suite of different metals,
Right.
different mixes and different deposits, the light rare earths and the heavy rare earths and different concentrations. So there's no off the shelf processing technology that does this. And, there are multiple projects I can think of over the years where they've gotten as far as a full feasibility study, a bankable feasibility study, and that stuff's still sitting in the ground. Right. And it's not that the IRR wasn't high enough. It's that even with the full feasibility study, you never really know. Right. You have to build a pilot plant, make sure it works, all that stuff. It's big money for uncertain gains, and it's been difficult. So, people will talk about, oh, we have some of the key heavy rare earths, blah, blah, all this stuff. Basically, it's really difficult. No two are the same. Um, the prices, the underlying prices are also subject to big volatility. Like the rare earths, anybody with rare earths from their name was seeing a lot of buzz earlier this month.
Yep.
And then suddenly there was news out of China and they all fell off a bit of a cliff. Right. And now we've got news as you and I are recording, we've got Trump and Xi have made a deal. It's not really a deal. It's just postponing, the truce, as it were. And China's going to postpone, they say, their restrictions on the rare earths and the magnets. The details are potentially quite diabolic here. I have no idea how it's going to play. Which ones, right? And is it going to apply to the processing or just the minerals themselves? Right? We just don't know. But the point is that let's say they really open the floodgates. Well, what's going to happen to your rare earth stocks?
Right.
So
Right.
this is not like, copper or even gold and silver. Like um, there's no sudden news that's going to suddenly tank copper, right? There's no Chernobyl meltdown that can melt down copper. There's no one mine that can open up and flood the world. Like, but with rare earths, the prices are set by political fiat.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the solution that the Western countries are talking about? Japan, this deal, another deal with Trump. And what's their deal on rare earths? We're going to support price floors. Like Japan doesn't produce rare earths, right? So what can they do? Well, they can promise subsidies, basically. That's another political fiat. Who's to say the next administration here or there won't change that? Sorry, we can't
Yeah.
afford it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I'm not saying there's no money to be made in rare earths. And certainly in this environment where the United States government is buying stakes in critical minerals companies, we've seen that move share prices. If you can get ahead of that lightning bolt, I don't know how to do that, but if you can do that, congratulations, good luck to you. But what the government giveth, it taketh away, and that applies to all governments. So my takeaway here is not that you can't make money in the space, but it's very difficult to do in any kind of reliable, disciplined way. I see it as much more of a gamble than the kind of rational speculation that Doug Casey and Rick Rule taught me.
And the independentspeculator.com is a place where you can find that rational speculation, correct? And we're going to talk about gold and silver and the mining shares. You cover some uranium there too for your subscribers?
Absolutely. Well, I say due diligence, rain on the parade, and so on. If you want hype, if you want it's going to the moon, if all you can hear is your favorite mineral is going higher, I'm not your due diligence guy.
But if you want to go about it the smart way,
Well, thank you, but we try.
there. Lobo, thank you so much. It's been, I knew this would be a fabulous discussion. I knew you were the right guy to talk to after the month that we've had. All I ask is that maybe we do this again sometimes because I have a suspicion we're going to have more months like this as we get into the new year.
Interesting times ahead. Thank you, Craig.
For sure. And thank you everybody for watching. We're going to start a new month here next week. And the month of November is going to be a crazy one. I think we think we can all anticipate that. So keep an eye on this channel wherever you're watching this content or listening to this content from Sprott Money. Hit the like or the subscribe button so you're notified whenever there's new content because it's coming. We got a whole new month of stuff that'll be headed your way as we begin to wrap up 2025. But for now, we'll wrap up the month of October and wrap up this video. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for Lobo for participating. And keep an eye on this channel. We have more content coming for you as soon as we get into November.